America. I'm with Gregory Patriat. He's the winemaker here at John Claude Boisset. Don't get it confused with John Charles Boisset. And you're listening to the Minority Wine Report and the podcast, Wine in Black and White. Welcome, Gregory. Tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit, how you got into this crazy wine world.
My CV is a little bit unusual because even if I am winemaker right now, I did not study enology. I have begun, I wanted to learn from scratch. So I started in 1995 as a simple worker in a vineyard. So I wanted to really learn from scratch and step by step to learn with all the different operations about viticulture and winemaking. So step by step, I started as a simple worker, and then vineyard manager at Domaine Leroy, which was a fabulous estate to learn with for 4 years, between 98 and 2002. And in 2002, I've met the Boisset family, Jean-Charles, which is very innovative, very enthusiastic.
Okay, so how did you end up meeting John Charles?
And that's maybe by chance. Jean-Charles wanted to make a revolution at Jean Claude Boisset. In the past,
what year was this?
It was 2002.
Okay,
the beginning of 2002. Jean-Charles was taking care about the French company, and he wanted to really revitalize the Jean Claude Boisset brand. In the past, the positioning was different, with much larger volume, with a total different positioning. And in 2002, following the success of Domaine de la Vougeraie, started in 1999, Jean-Charles wanted to make a revolution at Jean Claude Boisset. And that was my mission in 2002. And Jean-Charles was looking for somebody who was not an enologist and somebody coming from really the vineyard side. So what was very important, that the new winemaker was not necessarily enologist, but was vineyard manager, somebody who could understand the field, who could understand the vineyard management, but could really understand the terroir in Burgundy. And I became a winemaker after that. So my first vintage, 2002, was plenty of fear because I had a little experience about winemaking, but not as the man who decides. For my first vintage was really frightening, if I remember about that.
So I know you have a passion for viniculture.
Yes.
Because I think you made a quote, the wine is made in the vines, in the field, not in the cellar or whatever. Where did that passion come from?
In fact, I have the chance to meet the right people. I think I have been educated by wine lovers, by the top winemakers in Burgundy, and I tried to be like a sponge, I would say. I tried to take the best of each people I have met in Burgundy. And what has been taught to me is really 80% of the quality of any wines is made in the vineyard, not in the winery. Because in my winemaking philosophy, I have to interfere as less as possible with the winemaking process. That means we do not add any yeast, we do not add any enological products. So the idea is to make top grapes that will make top wines. So if that's really what we have to interfere as less as possible with the winemaking process. But that means top grapes first.
Are you organic, biodynamic?
Alors here we are 40% organic farming here, and more every year we encourage to go. The idea is to be at one day to reach 100%, but it's not easy. And we have many farmers we are working with in Burgundy, but the idea is to increase this volume as much as possible.
Let's talk about your wines. How many different wines do you make?
So we make, I think, close to 50 different wines here. At
50 here?
50.
Because at Domaine Leroy, they make 41 because they got 40, around 41. You make 50 different wines?
50 different wines.
How do you manage that?
It seems a lot, but I mean, the total production is 25,000 cases. It's not that big in terms of production. So I mean, under 300,000 bottles, it's quite rare.
So they're coming from 50 different places?
Yes, exactly. And sometimes more than that. Imagine, Chambol Musigny, the wine what we make here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this Chambo Musigny right here. I didn't mean to take the camera off you, but this was probably, and this is just a village wine, correct?
It's village wine, but imagine when you understand that, you understand Burgundy. We make 3,000 bottles total production, but coming from 10 different vineyards. Imagine. Wow. 10 single vineyards to make 3,000 bottles. When you understand that, you understand the fragmentation.
Well, but I want the people that's going to listen to this for you to let them know, how do a person that loves Burgundy, how do they understand Burgundy?
Burgundy is complicated even for us.
Even for the Frenchman?
Yes.
That's in Burgundy?
Yeah, I'm happy to be born here because I can understand much more. But, Burgundy is simple. Chardonnay for the whites, Pinot Noir for the red. So why is it so difficult? No, I'm joking a little bit. The difficulty is to understand the variations about, we make thousands of different Pinot Noir, thousands of different Chardonnays. And this is really what is not easy to understand. I can really accept that.
Okay, so how would one understand Burgundy in a sense? What would be the best ways to visit Burgundy and explore it through?
I think
driving
the best
through the
way,
little small towns and
the best way, of course, is to have a little bit of education, to read a little bit,
yes.
read a little bit about Burgundy. If you come here and you've never read anything about the appellations, it's too complicated. But I think what is important is to visualize. I think when you come here, you go in each village, you take your car, you drive 1 mile here, 2 miles further. You really understand what is Burgundy. You must really come here to understand. That's the best way and maybe easiest way to understand Burgundy.
And I asked this question before. I was at Domaine de Rougerey. What's the mystique of Burgundy? What makes people love it and want more and more of it?
A few different things. The first thing is Burgundy is small, 5 times smaller than Bordeaux. So at first that makes a small jewel, and we can say a small piece of land. History is the second thing. History, Burgundy is the result of 2,000 years of observation, mostly by the monks at the 11th, 12th, and 13th century. They really designed the Burgundy and a long time ago. And the third thing is there are not many places in Burgundy where you make bad Pinots. That doesn't mean you make bad Pinots in California. You make different Pinots.
Different, of course.
Burgundy is unique. That's something we must be proud of here.
What was the monks' fascination with making wine? They like drinking wine, apparently, right? But
yes.
Then they were also winemakers also, correct?
Yes, definitely.
What was their fascination with Pinot or, in Burgundy?
That's, but the making wine in the 12th century was a different philosophy. They were making wine. It was like food. It was not really what we have today, pleasure.
It was not a serious wine, no?
Yeah, there were maybe some good wines, but we must know that a lot of wines were not as good as they are now. Of course,
okay.
Of course, but that was like drinking wine was like eating at this period. So it was something necessary that has to be done every year. It became now a pleasure, really an art, and a little bit more than that, I would say. But at these times, it was a different consumption.
Okay, let's talk about some of your wines, some of your favorites. What do we have in front of us here? I'm going to take the camera off you for a minute and focus on the Chambo Musigny. Tell me about Musigny, because the Grand Cru of Musigny is one of my favorites, but this is Chambo, I believe. I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Definitely,
Musigny.
you're good.
And what's the difference? Go ahead.
Chambo is my favorite appellation in Burgundy because it's 2.5 times smaller than Gevrey-Chambertin, so not as known. Not as much Grand Cru, but for me, the real connoisseur, the real Burgundy lovers, this is the place where they usually prefer the wines, because this is the ultimate place where you make the most refined and elegant Pinots in Burgundy. The soil is so poor here, with the highest percentage of limestone in Burgundy, and that's really what makes the Pinot so unique and so elegant, so refreshing. in fact. They don't have a big power like Gevrey, but they have so much elegance and so much finesse.
For my listening audience, what's the soil is poor. How is that good for the grapes?
The vines need to suffer to me. This is
Well,
what
I
we
knew the
use.
answer to that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
this is the vines need to suffer.
You don't
to
want them to feel relaxed. They need to work, right?
Yeah, exactly. If the grapes, the vine doesn't suffer, they do not produce good grapes. We need small amount of grapes per vine fruit. We need tiny grapes. The smallest are the grapes, usually the most concentrated will be the wine. And especially in Chambolle-Musigny, imagine with that much limestone, the roots needs to go really deep in the soil. They need to have strength, force, to find the water and to find the food and the energy to survive. So this is why the vineyard suffer much more than in other
This
villages.
Chambolle-Musigny is outstanding. This is 2020, and you told me 2020 is a very powerful, good year.
It's a beautiful vintage, quite sunny, a little bit more ripe, a little bit more color than other vintages, but the wine is very super concentrated and accessible already. The difficulty of the winemaker in 2020 is to preserve the freshness. It's very ripe, very concentrated, but freshness is a key word in this vintage.
Let's talk about the next one that you have for me. What do we have here? We got about 3 or 4 minutes.
We have Charme Chambertin, which is one of the most
Grand Cru,
the most well-known Grand Cru of Gevrey Chambertin, the largest as well, because it started in Gevrey Chambertin on the north part, and the south part is very close from Moret Saint-Denis. So different situation, and this is why Charme Chambertin is so well known, because there are a lot of producers. I don't know how many total, but it's really an interesting wine, one of the most iconic Grand Cru of Burgundy. And we make 5 barrels. Imagine 1,500 bottles total production.
This year is amazing. It was one of our favorites, and then the last Grand Cru you have there is
Clos de la Roche, my
little baby, only one barrel.
Imagine we vinify 300 kilos in a small tank. So that's really a beautiful, one of my favorite. 16 hectares total with different owners, but one of the 5 iconic Grand Crus of Moret Saint-Denis. And Roche, means in English limestone, and it's typical terroir where you have a lot of limestone and a lot of elegance, but with a lot of power as well.
You have a quote that I read, and I'm very interested in this, and I think that John Charles gives you the freedom to explore some of your vinicultural experience in making wine, where you don't. I mean, he lets you be yourself in a sense, and you made the quote:
Right.
"The major evolution has been the development of vinification without sulfur using the bio protection technique for reds."
Yeah, for the reds.
What does that mean?
Alors, we don't use sulfur in the vinification process.
At all.
Zero. So that means during the maceration process, when the grapes are in the tongue during the fermentation, usually what is traditionally made is we add sulfur to protect the wine and to avoid any
Isn't it the
deviation.
winemaker's best friend in a sense, sulfur?
Yes, usually.
On average, most winemakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the wines are made this way. But here, the idea of not using sulfur here is to add, you extract much more elegant tannins. You extract a lot of finesse. You realize that when you use some sulfur at this level, at this stage in vinification, you extract a lot of tannins with sulfur. When you add some sulfur, the wines are tighter, bigger, with more square tannins. When you don't use sulfur, you have a texture that is really impossible to copy. So what I love here is the texture of the tannins.
So if you're not using sulfur, are you kind of leaning towards more of a natural wine or no?
Yes, but usually I dislike natural wines.
I dislike natural wines
because
also.
most of natural wines are cider.
Yeah.
for me. Let's be completely honest.
So how do you get so I guess it's a winemaking technique that
Yeah.
you've been able to experiment with to make great wines without. There's people that think that because of the SO2 sulfur, blah blah blah, that's what gives them a headache sometimes
Yes.
when they're drinking red wine. But I think they were gonna get a headache anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
Yes, no. Yes, definitely. But what is more, it's in fact twice more difficult. To add less sulfur, you have to be twice more precise at every level of the vinification process. So
I understand.
at the opposite of what people imagine, it's much more difficult to do. And I love wine with precision, with freshness, and no deviations. You know.
So what's the goal? Where are you going in the next 5 years? What would you like to improve to make better wines?
It's every year you have to reset all what you think, you know. And trust me, in 2020 was a difficult vintage, for example, for me, because I had plenty of experience, 20 vintages behind me, and you know, I thought with no sulfur it's going to be easy, and 2020 was not easy at all. So. And many problems of fermentations. I don't want it to be too long.
There's no bad vintages, only bad winemakers.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, every year, reset your mind, think with your experience, of course, but you have to really never feel too much happy.
How is it, John Charles, being your boss?
Alors, Jean-Charles is unique, I would say, because I don't know any other, you know, I was 27 years old when I joined the company. And I don't know anybody else in Burgundy who would give the keys of the Ferrari here, just drive it well. You know, in any other wineries in Burgundy, you need to follow a style established a long time ago. You don't not move anything to the wine. Oak process, extraction, you know, style of the white, style of the red. So here, I had complete carte blanche to do what I want. So that's unique in Burgundy, and that's not traditional in Burgundy, but to have carte blanche like that.
In closing.
Yes.
I'm going to do another interview with John Charles probably within the next couple months. I need a little data. I need something that... What do you know about John Charles that I might not know?
And Jean-Charles has a lot of energy.
Lots of energy.
Yeah.
But okay, just the American public, because in America, he's like a rock star. Is there some trait or aspect of him that people might misunderstand as far as what type of person he is? I don't know if you can understand that in the sense. I mean, some people might, you know, look at him as arrogant, as, you know, but I think he's a wonderful guy.
Jean-Charles is everything but arrogant. He's so much open-minded, you know. Yeah.
I hear one time he did the stomping in his underwear one time. Did you ever do that here?
Yeah. Jean-Charles comes often to plunge the can by foot, but I don't like him when he's doing too many times. Because Jean-Charles is doing it too well, with too much energy, and sometimes you need more softness.
Okay, Gregory, thank you for the interview. It's been wonderful. And continue making outstanding, what I call really good juice. I love it, and the wines are fantastic. And we'll do this again sometime. Cheers.
My pleasure.